Good evening, all.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes,
Very good evening, ma'am.
and welcome to session 10 of Management Fundamentals. So, yes, we had started with the planning process last time, right? And we had gone across the definition, characteristics, steps, nature of planning, importance, benefits, and factors that make the plan effective. And wherein in the steps of planning, we just have taken the glimpse of the steps that are involved. Now, let us go into further details one by one. So, yes, this is what we'll be going through today, starting from the planning process and steps involved, the planning subsystem, major dimensions of plans, types of plans according to the repetitiveness dimension, time dimension, and how can we develop a strategic plan, difference between strategic and tactical planning, strategic and operational planning, types of planning, and then approaches to strategic planning. So that's our agenda for today. And next time probably we'll be coming up with the MCQs of 3 sessions. Fine? Okay. So let us start. Yes, the entire planning process or how to set up a plan. It consists of the steps given over here. First is being aware of opportunities in light of the market, competition, what customers need or want, strengths, our strengths, that is strengths of the business organization, and our weakness, that is weaknesses of the business organization as such. So with this respect to this point, we can say before proceeding the actual planning, and not therefore strictly we can say that it is a part of planning process, awareness of the opportunities is or could be called as the real starting point for planning. It includes a preliminary look at the possible future opportunities and the ability to see them clearly and completely. So knowledge of where we stand in the light of our strengths and weaknesses, and understanding of why we wish to solve the uncertainties, and a vision of what we expect to gain. So that's what we can say with respect to being aware of the opportunities in light of all mentioned. Yes, in step 1. Then the next part is setting the objectives or establishing the objectives. So the first step in the planning itself is to establish the objectives for the entire enterprise and then for each subordinate unit. Objectives specifying the results expected indicate the endpoints of what is to be done, where the preliminary emphasis is to be placed, and what is to be accomplished by the network of entire strategies, policies, procedures, rules, budgets, and programs. So enterprise objectives should give direction to the nature of all major plans, which by reflecting these objectives, they will define the objectives of major departments. So major departmental objectives in turn will control the objectives of subordinate departments and so on down the line. Now the objectives of lesser departments will be better framed. However, if subdivision managers understand the overall enterprise objectives and the implied derivative goals, and if they are given an opportunity to contribute their ideas, to them and to the setting of their own goals. So now we can say that there are four outstanding benefits that result from the statement of objectives. What are they? Setting of the objectives or goals will help or to provide direction. Then objectives, they serve as motivators. These objectives, they contribute to the management process. They are the basis for management philosophy and they serve as a guide for organization consistency. Then the third step is planning premises. So another logical step in planning is to establish, obtain agreement to utilize and disseminate critical planning premises. These are forecast data of factual nature, applicable basic policies, and existing company plans. Premises then are planning assumptions that we are referring to. In other words, the expected environment of plans in operation. What is the environment in which the plans would be implemented? So this step leads to one of the major principles of planning. The more individuals charged with planning understand and agree to utilize consistent planning premises or assumptions, the more coordinated the enterprise planning will be. Say, for example, forecasting is important in premising. Say, for example, again, what kind of markets will be there? What quantity of sales in making the forecast? What are the products and their prices? What are the technical developments that would be required? What are the costs and what are the required policies? How will expansion be financed, so on and so forth. So planning premises include far more than the usual basic forecast of population, prices, costs, production, markets, and similar other matters. So because the future environment of plants is so complex, it would not be profitable or realistic even to make assumptions about every detail of the future environment of a plant. Then the fourth step is determining and identifying the alternative courses of action. So we can say that since agreement to utilize a given set of premises is important to coordinate planning, it becomes a major responsibility of the managers, starting with those at the top, to make sure that subordinate managers understand the premises upon which they are expected to plan. So it is not usual for chief executives, again in well-managed companies, to force top managers with differing views through group deliberation to arrive at a set of major premises that all can accept. So once the organizational objectives have been clearly stated and the planning premises have been developed, the manager should list as many available alternatives as possible for reaching the objectives. So the focus of this step is to search for and examine alternative courses of action, especially those not immediately apparent. There is seldom a plan for which reasonable alternatives do not exist. So all plans will be having alternatives. So the more common problem is not finding alternatives, but reducing down the number of alternatives. So the most promising alternatives may be analyzed. Even with mathematical techniques and the computer, there is a limit to the number of alternatives that can be examined. It is therefore usually necessary for a planner to reduce by preliminary examination the number of the alternatives to those promising the most fruitful possibilities, or by mathematically eliminating through the process of approximation the least promising ones. Right? So that's the importance. Reduce down on the alternative courses of action. Then evaluating these alternative courses. Next. So having sought out the alternative courses and examined their strong and weak points, the following step is to evaluate them by weighing the various factors in light of premises and goals. So one course may appear to be most profitable but require a large cash outlay and a slow payback, right? Another may be less profitable but involve less risk. Still another may better suit the company in long range objectives. So that's the manner in which the alternative courses will be evaluated. So if the only objective were to examine the profits in a certain business immediately, if the future were not uncertain, if cash position and capital availability were not worrisome, and if most factors could be reduced to definite data, this evaluation should be relatively easy, right? So if you're aware that future is not that uncertain, cash position is quite okay, business can manage with extra funds, and what one needs to do is to earn the targeted profits, okay, then the evaluation could have been relatively easy of evaluating the alternative courses. But typical planning is replete with uncertainties, problems of capital shortages, and intangible factors, and so evaluation is usually very difficult, even with relatively simple problems. So a company may wish to enter a new product line primarily for the purpose of prestige. The forecast of expected results may show a clear financial loss, but the question is still open as to whether the loss is worth the gain. So in spite of the uncertainties in future, it then depends upon the business to consider the loss that could be placed with the involvement of new product. If that is going to be, there are chances of converting the same loss into gain in future. So that's how the evaluation process takes place. Then choosing the alternative or selecting the appropriate course of action. An evaluation of alternatives must include an evaluation of the premises, that is, the assumptions on which the alternatives are based. A manager usually finds that some premises are reasonable and can therefore be excluded from further considerations. So this elimination process helps the manager determine which alternatives would best accomplish the organizational objectives. Next is developing the plans to pursue the chosen alternative. So after the appropriate alternative has been chosen, the manager begins to develop strategic, that is long range, and tactical, that is short range plans. Then numberizing the plans by budgeting. So after decisions are made and plans are set, the final step would be to give them meaning, that is to numberize them by converting them into budgets, because each and every plan would be requiring a budget. So the overall budgets of an enterprise represent the sum total of the income and expenses with resultant profit or surplus, and budgets of major balance sheet items such as the cash, the capital, the expenditures, and so on. Right? So each department or program of a business or other enterprise can have its own budgets, usually of expenses and capital expenditure, which tie into the overall budget. So, if this process is done well, it is preparation of budgets. Budgets become a means of adding together the various plans and also important standards against which the planning progress can be measured. And the last step is putting the plan into action. So once the plans that furnish the organization with both long range and short range direction have been developed, they must be implemented. Obviously, the organization cannot directly benefit from the planning process until the implementation of plans take place, right? So this is respect to the entire 9-step planning process. Now with this, we move ahead with the planning subsystem. So the subsystem of planning can be depicted as it is a system wherein you are having the inputs at one place, the process, and then the organizational plans, right? The inputs with reference to the people, the money, the assets, the funds, and so on. In the planning process, so that is all the resources with which the organization will be doing business will be referred to as inputs. Then in planning process, we are having stating of the objectives, listing alternatives, developing premises, and choosing the best alternative for reaching the organizational plans. So the entire planning subsystem can be viewed by way of inputs, processing, by way of the planning process, and the output is given in the form of organizational plan. So now let us move on to major dimensions of plan before we come across the different types of plans. So the dimensions on the basis of which different types of plans could be built are divided into 4 categories: the repetitiveness dimension, the time dimension, scope dimension, and level dimension. Now, the repetitive dimension of a plan refers to, as the word suggests, the extent to which the plan is used over again and again, right? Some plans are typically designed for one situation that is relatively short term in nature, whereas other plans are designed to be used time after time for long term recurring situations. Second dimension is a time dimension. It refers to the length of time the plan covers. Strategic planning was defined as the long term in nature, while tactical planning was defined as the short term in nature. So depending upon the dimension of time, the length of time, will be having the strategic and tactical planning. Then next is the scope. Now it refers to the proportion of the total management system at which the plan is aimed. So what is the scope of the plan? Right? Some plans are designed to cover the entire open management system. This plan can be referred to as the master plan. Whereas other plans are developed to cover only a portion
नारायण
of
चेंबर्स
the management system.
हाँ हॉस्टेल आहे की एवढा मोठं हो हॉस्टेल एवढा मोठा वाडा आहे
think Ma'am Charanya's speaker.
Now, stop sharing and speak to him.
Ma'am, please mute him from your side.
Am I able to mute the participants?
येणार होतो ना आणि काल फोन इसका म्हणलं बहुतेक ते काल कामात गडबडीत काय म्हणलं जाते म्हणलं त्याला येते म्हणलं
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
आता आल्यानंतर फोन करावा चला येऊ ओके हो येतो
Yes. Yes. So repetitiveness dimension, time dimension, scope dimension, and then the level dimension. The level dimension will refer to the level of organization at which the plan is aimed. Top level plans are those that are designed for the organization's top management. Middle and lower level plans are designed for middle and lower level management. So that's with respect to the dimensions of plans. Now, based on the plan's dimensions, further we can have different types of plans. So now with this, let us move into types of plans according to repetitiveness dimension. So where we can see that organizational plans are divided into standing plans and single-use plans. So standing plans, those in standing plans, we include the plans that are used over and over again because they focus on the organizational situations that occur repeatedly, right? So the examples are the policy, that is, it is a standing plan that furnishes the broad guidelines for action consistent with reaching the organizational objectives. So say for example, what is the policy for recruitment, right? Then we are having the procedures. They are the standing plans that outline a series of related actions that have to be taken to accomplish a particular task. So what is the procedure for recruitment? Then we are having the rules. Again, rules are standing plans that designate specific required action. A rule indicates what an organization member should or should not do and allows no room for further interpretation. So rules where they are required to be followed by all in the organization. They are set. Once set, they have to be followed from one accounting period to the next period and so on, right? And then second category is single use plans. Now single use plans such as, that is one time use, the program and the budget. So program is a single use plan that is designed to carry out a specific project within the organization. The project itself is not intended to remain in existence over the entire life of the organization. So once the objective of the projects are achieved, the project comes to an end, right? So it doesn't continue for a foreseeable future. Rather, it exists to achieve some purpose. So that if accomplished, the purpose of the project, then it will contribute to the organization's long-term success. So a program, again, a single-use plan that is designed to carry a specific project within the organization. Again, the project is of course in alignment with the organizational objectives. And then comes a budget. Again, it is a single-use financial plan that covers a specified length of time, right? It is a statement that expresses the expected results In numerical terms, it may be referred to as a numberized plan or program tool. So with respect to each and every project that is carried out, with respect to each and every activity that is carried out, with respect to each and every department that is taking care of different functions, budgets will be prepared. So budgets will vary from period to period, right? So single use plans. Once the budget is prepared, the action takes place, it no longer, it's of no further use. So that is single time plan or single use plan. Now based on another dimension, that is time dimension, let us look into the types of plans. They are the strategies or the tactical or operational plans. So the strategy is the process of achieving a fit between the organizational capabilities and evolving environment. Now, these strategies are usually prepared by the top level managers, which percolates down the hierarchy within the organization. So, strategies pertain to those destiny shaping decisions. That's what we call as when we refer to strategies. So, now this destiny shaping decisions could be with respect to, say, the choice of technology in which the products are based, on which the products are based, the development and the release of new products, the processes for producing the products and services, the way they are marketed, distributed, and priced, or the way the firm responds to the competitors or rivals in the external environment of business. Right? So all these destiny shaping decisions, usually taken by the top level managers, are called as strategies. Right? And then we are having the tactical or operational plan. So now these are primarily concerned with the short-term goals in order to achieve the short-term targets of the business organizations. Now organizations, they usually carry out formal operational plans on a regular yearly basis. But still, there are, even though these operational or tactical plans are carried out on a yearly basis, still there exists some distinction between strategic planning and operational planning. So let us look into the same. First is area of difference. Considering the individuals involved, that it's who is involved into the planning process, the top level. Tactical planning, it is lower level of management. Then facts on which the planning is based. Now, whenever we are preparing or we are into preparing these, what you say, destiny shaping decisions, we are planning for these decisions, then the data on which we will be basing the plans, it is relatively difficult to gather. Usually forecasts are carried out. Why they are difficult to gather? Because of the complex business environment in which the business houses operate. Okay. Whereas tactical planning, which goes on a routine basis, it's relatively easier to gather because data with respect to what plans have been implemented earlier with respect to the products or with respect to the services, they are already available. Some historical data is always available with the organization. Then the amount of detailing in which the plan goes, strategic planning by the nature itself, it cannot go into minute details. Whereas the tactical planning, which is carried out on a yearly or on a regular basis, it needs to involve minute details in order to ensure that they are being implemented in a proper manner. because without the details, the implementation won't be possible. And the length of time, it's usually a long term for strategic and it is short term for tactical planning. So now with this difference between the strategic planning and tactical planning, now let us look into how can one develop a strategic plan. It's very important. Why? Again, because it's relatively difficult to gather information with respect to this strategic plans. So the entire strategic planning, it is includes developing alternative courses of actions again and choosing one from them. It's there in the planning process, whichever planning you move into. So it is divided into different steps. Now these steps, let us go through them one by one. Step 1, determine the current domain of business enterprise. Now this is in terms of the scope that the business house will have. That is, determine the products and the services that it offers and to whom it offers. So determine or identify the current domain of the enterprise. Second, find out, identify the political, social, and economic trends that we need to consider. So what product and the technological changes we anticipate that are going to affect our organization. So is it the product that will be going changes or the processes in which the products would be manufactured will be going through the changes and so on, right? So identify the trends. Then step 3, determine the current strengths and weaknesses of our business. This means that the management has to analyze the organization's operational, financial, and managerial strengths and weaknesses. Next is step 4, decide what business we want to be in and the best manner in which we could be there. So this means that the management must develop alternatives and analyze each in the light of organization strengths and weaknesses, as well as the opportunities and the threats that it will face with respect to each and every target domain or business or products or services, right? And step 5, set the specific objectives. Once you have developed a new strategic plan, it should be quantified in terms of goals. So once the plan is made, the strategic planning is done, then it has to be quantified in terms of segregated into goals that one needs to achieve so that the desired objectives are in place. So now with this, now let us look into the difference between strategic and operational planning. Again, the difference is with respect to the time horizon, the purpose, activity control, decision making, organizational level, basis of planning, predictability, accuracy, management function, and control over the outcome. We have already seen this strategic planning and operational planning. And now, wherein even the middle level management could be involved. Now with this, we move on to the different types of planning. Yes, it could be formal and informal planning. Formal planning, well-planned document with a record where the organization intends to within a given time frame. informal one, wherein a plan is designed as and when required. You come up with a plan, sitting together. It could be in grapevine communication or it could be in organized groups, okay, which is just orally communicated in order to carry out the tasks, okay, with reference to the changes in the circumstances that are taking place on an ongoing basis, wherein there is very less time that is available to inform, to go by the formal channels. So wherein you prepare informally, you plan and you act on it. Then we have functional and corporate planning. So corporate planning essentially done by the top level board of directors with respect to broad level objectives. And functional planning, as the name suggests, it's with respect to the different functions that are carried out within the organization. Marketing, finance, production, HR, international business, and so on, depending upon which business you are into. Are you into production or in trading business, and so on. And then proactive and reactive planning. In proactive planning, what do the managers do? The managers, in advance, before the happening of an event, they think about what are the risks that could be, that the businesses could be facing in the complex business environment in which they are working, considering the global competition they are facing, what could be the risks involved, and proactively, that is beforehand, they are ready with that in case the such and so risk is being faced by business, what could be our solution to the problem, right? So that is with respect to proactive planning. And reactive planning, that is when a situation crops up, that's where you prepare the plan to handle that situation. You have not thought about anything in advance. It is just like preventive and breakdown maintenance that you have for machines. Similarly, proactive and reactive planning. Okay, so with different types of planning, now we further move on to what are the different approaches that one can have towards planning or towards this strategic planning. So fundamentally, there are 4 approaches to do formal strategic planning. First is the top-down approach, bottom-up approach, mixture of both, and then the team approach. So as the name suggests, in top-down approach, in a centralized company, such planning is done at the top of the corporation and the departments and outline the activities. They are advised straight away what is to be done. So decisions are taken in a centralized manner by the top management, which percolates down the hierarchy. That is with respect to a centralized company. Now, what happens in case of a decentralized company? The CEO or the president may give the divisions guidelines and they can ask for the plans. The plans, after review at the head office, they are sent back to the divisions for modifications or with a note of acceptance. So planning will be done by the respective divisions or departments. They move to the top level management. The top level management may continue with the same, that stating the necessary sanction, or they can suggest a few modifications being done, and then they have to be by default followed by the different divisions. So this is the top-down approach. Then exactly opposite, we are having the bottom-up approach. The top management gives the divisions no guidelines over here, no framework, but asks them to submit the plans. Now, such plans may contain information with respect to the major opportunities and threats as seen by the major divisions. What are the major objectives that they could be achieving? What are the strategies thought of by the different divisions in order to achieve these objectives? Specific data with respect to sales, with respect to the profits that were earned or they could be earning, with respect to market share, present and forecasted should be given, and the capital requirements, right? So now these plans, they are then reviewed at the top management levels, and the same process as in the top-down approach is then followed. Reviewed, if changes are required, they are changed. In no, if they are not required, then they are accepted, and that's what the divisions are required to follow. Right? So the initiative is taken at the bottom level of management in CRUX. Then a mixture of top and bottom up approaches. Now this is practiced in most large decentralized companies. In this approach, the guidelines that are given by the top management to the divisions, they are broad enough to permit the divisions a good amount of flexibility in developing their own plans. Sometimes the top management may decide basic objectives by dialogue with the divisional managers in respect of sales and return on investment, especially when the divisional performance is measured upon this criteria. Okay, so it could be that the framework is given by the top-down approach, and then the divisions are required to prepare, have a good amount of flexibility to develop their own plans. So that now why a mixture of top-down and bottom-up approach is being resorted to? It's with respect to, again, the performance evaluation of the middle and lower level management, right? Because this is the expected performance. When they develop the plans, they are already stating that it is with this objective. For the objective, we are having these strategies. We observe that this is what could be achieved. So when such plans are being, flexible plans are being laid down by the middle and lower level managers, automatically it becomes easier to track the performance that is achieved by them with respect to the plans prepared, right? So that's where a mix and match approach is being followed. And then the last one to go is the team approach. Now the chief executive in a small centralized company, it often uses his line managers to develop formal plans. Okay. The same approach is used even by the president of a large company. In many other companies, the president meets and interfaces or interacts with his group of executives on a regular basis to deal with all the problems that could the company be facing, so that the group can develop written strategic plans. So this is again a mix and match approach where the top, middle and lower level management people, they sit together, they have brainstorming done amongst themselves with respect to the objectives that are planned to be achieved by business organizations, and with a unanimous effort they develop the plans, right? The strategic plans. So these are the different approaches of strategic planning. Now Let us consider within each of these approaches, what could be the different alternatives that could be followed. Okay. So the different alternatives could be complete SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis, we mean thereby, okay, screen sharing has stopped. Yes. In these different approaches, again, there may be different alternatives that could be used is a complete SWOT analysis, that is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. In some companies, the divisions, they supply the top management with some perceived opportunities and threats that they feel that the organizations would be facing in the upcoming future, right? And with the strategies to exploit the opportunities and avoid the threats. So once they are aware of these threats and opportunities, again, they can have their own plans to make the maximum utilization of the opportunities placed by the external environment of business, and thereby have their own ways and manners or plans to avoid the threats, if any, that could be cropping up that they feel looking into the current circumstances of business. Then we have depth of analysis. So some companies at the initial stage, they do not make in-depth analysis of all the aspects of planning. Okay, now why this is so? Because many times in the limitations of planning, it states that whenever the plans are being chalked out, be it by whatever approach, the actual situation is always something different than the plans because of the changing complex business environment, right? So the entire planning efforts that is being done, it goes into waste and it consumes a lot of time, energy, and the inputs, the thought process of the different levels of managers that are involved into it. So what is the use of the planning exercise then? So taking these limitations of planning into consideration, organizations, they also prefer not to make in-depth analysis of all the aspects of planning, right? Now, they increase the intensity of the analytical exercise gradually as experience is gained and the work proceeds forward. So instead of having the analysis done in advance, it is done side by side with as and how the plans are being implemented. Then we come across the degree of formality. There are different practices that are being used as regards to the formality with which the plans are prepared. For some large companies, they are having centralized organization structures and comparatively stable environment and homogeneous product lines. Planning will be less formal, right? With centralized organization, stable environment of business, and homogeneous, that is similar product lines, planning would be less formal as compared to that of diversified companies which are decentralized and semi-autonomous product division structures, right? With the diversification business, the business will be having n number of products of their own. With the increase in the number of products, each and every product line being taken care of by different departments, that's where decentralization comes into the picture. Yes, and then not only with respect to centralization and decentralization, homogeneous and diverse product lines, but also it is seen that high technology companies, they have more formal systems, and yet they recognize informality in decision making and managerial activities associated with planning. So depending upon the nature of the organization structure, depending upon the nature of products, and depending upon the nature of technology being used, the degree of formality in the organization with respect to the planning process would be changing. Further point that could be considered is reliance on the staff. So now it is up to each and every division, up to each and every divisional manager, we can say, that they can decide, again considering the strengths and weaknesses of the departmental members, they can decide then the extent of delegation that a manager can do with respect to the planning process, considering the number of years of service, strengths, weaknesses, and the evaluation, the performances that are being given by the existing staff. Further, other point could be whether the organization has a corporate planner or no. Okay, are there any planners, corporate planners, services being used or no? Because usually large corporations, they employ the corporate planners to help in the planning process, whereas the smaller organizations, essentially they cannot afford to have this luxury. Then there has to be a linkage within the different plans of the organizations. Further, getting the process started, that is, the strategic planning may begin with an effort to solve a particular problem. So the process has to start somewhere, right? Again, it has to be in alignment of the current strategy being implemented. Then the degree of documentation. Again, a balance has to be struck between too little and too much of paperwork. Why? Because with the number of formality increase, as they increase, the time that would be required to arrive at the decisions could result into losing of opportunities placed by the business environment. So one has to look into the degree of documentation, and finally the role of chief executing officer. His role is very important, very critical, depending upon, again, the degree of complexity that is involved in the organization. The products that they are offering to the consumers, the services that are in place along with the products, the market shares of the business, okay, the environment in which they are operating, is it a national or an international environment of business, and so on. So in all the different approaches of strategic planning, these are the different, what we can say, these are the different considerations that one needs to give whatever type of approach is being adopted for strategic planning. So yes, that's all for today class. In the coming session, I think we should be done with the planning unit. So wherein we'll be covering up management by objectives as a different way of planning, and then we'll be dealing with the MCQs after revising what we have done till today. Right? Yes.
Okay, ma'am.
So that's all for today. Thank you, class.
Thank you, ma'am.